If an advent calendar ever shows up on your doorstep and you don't remember buying it, don't bring it inside. If you've already brought it inside, don't open the first window. If you've already opened the first window, I'm sorry. I'm recording this on my phone with the calendar sitting 3 feet away from me on the table. It's December 24th. There's one unopened window left. I already know what's behind it, and I already know what's supposed to happen to me tonight. I'm not religious. I'm barely festive. The last time I celebrated Christmas properly, I was a teenager, and my parents still spoke to each other without lawyers. This year, like the last few, I'm alone in a small city apartment that smells like old pipes and fried food from the restaurant downstairs. I've got a fake 2-foot tree I never bothered to take out of the box, and a string of dollar store lights that only half work. So when I opened my door on December 1st and saw the advent calendar propped neatly against the frame, for one stupid second, I thought, oh, someone remembered me. It was beautiful. That sounds like the wrong word, but it was. Thick cardboard, heavy in my hands. The front showed an old-fashioned Christmas street scene, the kind from storybooks, cobblestones, gas lamps, snow falling gently. Warm light glowed from the windows of little painted houses. In the center, a tall Christmas tree stood in a town square, ornaments shining. There were 24 perforated windows, one for each day of Advent, arranged in no obvious order. Little numbers in gold ink, no brand name, no barcode, no made in China on the back. Just one line, printed in looping script across the bottom. Countdown to Christmas, one window a day. I called out into the hallway, half expecting someone to lean over the railing and grin. Very funny. Who dropped this? Nothing. Just the hum of the lights and the muffled bass of someone's TV down the hall. I checked for a note. Nothing. I should have left it out there. Instead, I brought it in. I set it on my wobbly kitchen table, the cardboard shining softly under the overhead light. It looked safe, old-timey, the opposite of everything sharp and ugly about this time of year for me. I told myself it was probably some neighbor's attempt at being festive, or a promo thing the landlord forgot to mention. I told myself a lot of things, back when I still had room for rational explanations. I opened the first window because I was bored. It was after midnight on December 1st. I'd been doom-scrolling for hours, watching everyone else's Christmas plans unfold in photos and posts, airport check-ins, decorated trees, couples in matching sweaters. My apartment was quiet, except for the faint hiss of the radiator and the occasional car splashing through slush outside. My eyes kept drifting back to the calendar. The first window was small, near the bottom left corner, gold 1 in a little star. "You're supposed to wait until morning," I muttered. But that sounded like something my mother would say, and she wasn't here, was she? I hooked a fingernail under the perforation and popped it open. Behind the cardboard flap wasn't chocolate, like I half expected, or a Bible verse, or some cartoon angel. It was a tiny photograph, and not the illustration kind, not a drawing, a full-color, ultra-sharp photograph, printed right on the backing card. It showed a street crossing at night, wet asphalt, reflecting red and green traffic lights, a row of parked cars, an empty bus stop. Everything was tilted slightly, like the image had been taken from a strange height, looking down at an angle. In the center of the crossing, frozen mid-step, was a figure. At first I thought it was a woman, but the image was too small to be sure. Long coat, scarf, umbrella up against invisible rain. There was something wrong with the shadow on the ground. It stretched too far, reaching toward the bottom corner of the picture, a smear of deeper black. I squinted, brought it closer to my face. The printing was unnervingly high quality. I could make out little details, the shine of water on the road, the chipped yellow paint of the curb. I told myself it was some generic stock photo they'd chopped up, one of 24 random scenes. Still, it bothered me. The angle, maybe, or that wrong shadow. I closed the flap. The next morning, on my way to work, I crossed in front of the coffee shop just as people were gathering on the sidewalk. An ambulance was parked at the intersection. Flashing lights painted the wet street red and blue. A bus half-angled across the lane. Police tape already out. I didn't mean to look, but I did. On the ground, near the crossing, a dark shape under a white sheet, a twisted umbrella a few feet away, the slick shine of spilled coffee next to a knocked-over cardboard cup. Later, when I got home, I opened the first window again. Street, cars, bus stop, figure mid-step in the crosswalk, and that shadow reaching toward the lower corner, like something waiting for her to finish crossing. The logical part of my brain got to work instantly. Coincidence? Cities full of those crossings. People get hit all the time. Advent calendars are printed en masse. The image is random. The rest of me was very, very quiet. While 3. Patterns. I didn't open the second window on the second day. I told myself I was proving a point, that I wasn't superstitious, that I wasn't letting a coincidence get under my skin. Really, I was scared of whatever would be behind the cardboard. The calendar sat there on my table, catching the corner of my eye every time I walked through the room. The little gold 2 on the next window seemed brighter than before, like it wanted my attention. On December 3rd, I gave in. Fine, I said aloud, because talking to inanimate objects is definitely a sign of good mental health. We're going to prove this is nothing. Window 2 was higher up, near the painted Christmas tree. I popped it open with my thumb. Behind it, another photo, different scene. Inside this time, a grocery store aisle, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, shelves full of cereal boxes and canned soup. The angle was wrong again, like a security camera view, high up and slightly skewed. In the center of the aisle, a man reaching for something on a high shelf. He wore a thick winter coat and a knit hat. His cart was half full. Again, the resolution was disturbingly crisp, considering the size. I could make out the brand names of some of the products. There was a dark blur at the top edge of the frame, like something partly obscuring the camera. I put the calendar down. This is what stores look like, I told myself. Millions of people buy cereal every day. Nothing weird about it. The next day, on my lunch break, I scrolled idly through local news. A headline caught my eye. Man dies in freak supermarket accident. I clicked. Grainy still frame from CCTV footage. A man in a coat, hand reaching up. A heavy box from a high shelf falling. Just a tragic accident, the article said. Wrong place, wrong time. The camera angle, the aisle, the way his arm was stretched. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, 4. Testing it. By the 5th window, I stopped pretending. Every morning after that, I opened the day's flap as soon as I woke up. Day 3, a playground at dusk. Empty swings, seesaw, one of those rocking spring animals, a bicycle lying on its side, wheels still blurred as if they had just stopped spinning. Day 4, a riverbank at night, a railing, footprints in snow leading right up to it and not continuing. Day 5, a cramped kitchen, a pot on the stove, lid askew, steam curling upward in a way that looked too much like reaching fingers. Every day, the news caught up. Child missing after leaving playground. Body found in the river. House fire on a run-down side street. Every day, some part of my mind dragged out a new excuse. These things happen a lot at Christmas. People are stressed. There's more travel, more candles, more everything. The calendar is just generic. You're seeing what you expect to see. Except that wasn't quite true, was it? Because on day 7, the photo was familiar. It was the bus stop near my street. I recognized the graffiti on the bench, the torn poster on the wall, the overflowing trash can, the printed timestamp in the corner. Tiny white numbers read 3:12. The angle was from above, as if something were watching from a second-floor window across the road. The bus stop was empty. Just a dusting of snow on the ground and a smear of something dark on the sidewalk, I couldn't quite make out at that size. I stared at it for a long time. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I set an alarm for 3 a.m. When it went off, my whole body protested, begging to stay under the thin blanket. But curiosity and fear are better than caffeine. I dragged on a coat over my pajamas, shoved my feet into boots without socks, grabbed my keys. The air outside hit me like a slap, sharp, icy, biting my lungs. The street was almost silent. Just the distant hum of traffic from the main road and the soft crackle of frost underfoot. The bus stop was exactly where it always was, and it was empty. No one bleeding on the sidewalk. No stranger waiting to be pushed. No ominous figure in the shadows. "This is insane," I whispered, the sound blooming white in the air. "You're out here at 3 in the morning because of a picture on cardboard." I waited. 3:08, 3:10, 3:15. Nothing. I went home, fingers numb, cheeks burning. Back inside, I looked at the calendar again. The bus stop photo hadn't changed. Same smear on the ground. Same timestamp. The next afternoon, police cars blocked off the end of my street. They said later it was a hit and run. Guy walking home drunk. Driver didn't see him. You know that feeling when your stomach drops in an elevator? It was like that, but slower, stretching out. The stain on the pavement was right where the darker smear had been in the picture. The victim's coat color matched the blur I'd assumed was bad printing. I had watched for something to happen, and it had, just not in the way I imagined. Being careful didn't matter. Watching didn't matter. The calendar wasn't showing possibilities. It was showing what would happen. By December 20th, I'd stopped leaving the apartment unless I absolutely had to. It didn't make a difference to the calendar. The images kept coming. An old man slipping on ice. A bar fight that went one punch too far. A forgotten candle near curtains. I stopped watching the news, but the world is efficient at delivering bad stories. People in the building talked. The internet made local headlines impossible to avoid. Holiday tragedy is good for clicks. The guilt settled on me like another layer of snow. I hadn't caused anything. That's the line I tried to hold. But I had known. At least, after the first few, I had known the pattern. And I had done nothing to stop it. You might be wondering why I didn't go to the police. What would I say? "Hi, I've got this haunted advent calendar that shows people dying, but only in tiny square pictures, and I don't know exactly when or where or who until it's too late. But trust me, best case, they'd suggest a psychiatrist. Worst case, they'd decide I was sick in a more criminal way. So I did nothing except watch and wait and flinch every time I walked past the table. On the back of the calendar, in tiny print I hadn't noticed at first, there was a little decorative box of text, like the blurb on a board game. 24 days, 24 windows. At midnight on the 24th, the story ends. Merry Christmas. There was no 25th window. You know how Advent calendars work. Each day is a step, and the last one is the big reveal. I'd been so fixated on the pictures, I hadn't let myself ask the obvious question. What happens when you're the only one left in the story? On the morning of December 23rd, I opened window 23 with shaking hands. The picture wasn't a street, or a store, or some stranger's living room. It was a room I recognized immediately. My own building's lobby. The shot was from high near the ceiling, where the smoke detector is. Cheap tile floors, mailboxes lining one wall, the grubby front door with its always jammed handle. In the middle of the lobby, someone stood, holding a package. The image was small, but the shape of it turned my stomach. A rectangular box, wrapped in paper, printed with little gold stars. The figure's face was blurred by the distance and the grain, but I didn't need to see it. I knew that coat, that hat. It was the courier who delivered parcels for the block. The guy I saw every few days, hustling up and down stairs, hands chapped from the cold. I stared until my eyes burned. I didn't go downstairs that day. I listened through the thin floor for footsteps. the clank of the outer door. Once, I thought I heard voices, raised and sharp, then the sudden cut of silence. By late afternoon, there were flashing lights outside again. I didn't need to look to know, because when I did, when I forced myself to glance out the window and down at the lobby, through the narrow gap between the blinds, there were paramedics wheeling out a stretcher. The parcel guy's arm dangled off the side, his hands swinging with each bump. The box with gold stars lay abandoned near the mailboxes, perfectly wrapped. Time dragged after they left. The calendar on my wall said December 23. The advent calendar on my table said, one window left. Number 24 sat at the very center of the cardboard town square, right over the painted Christmas tree. I didn't touch it, not yet, and is for 8. Tonight. That brings us to now, December 24th. I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch, watching the dark move around the furniture, until the sky outside shifted from black to ugly gray. Around 7, my phone buzzed with a message from my boss, asking if I was okay to still cover today. I turned it face down and left it. The advent calendar watched me from the table. It sounds strange to say a piece of cardboard was watching me, but that's what it felt like. The windows I'd already opened were like dead eyes, small rectangles of frozen horror. The single unopened flap in the middle was worse. At 9 a.m., I made coffee with hands that didn't seem entirely attached to me. The smell didn't cut through the nausea sitting in my chest. At 10, I sat at the table. The calendar waited. I rested my fingertip on the edge of window 24. You don't have to know, I told myself. But that was a lie, and I knew it. Not looking doesn't change what's already printed. Slowly, I pressed along the perforations. The flap lifted. It's C. 9. Window. 24. For a second, I thought it was empty, just black. Then my eyes adjusted. The picture was darker than the others. The contrast was higher, the colors more muted. It showed a room. My room. The image was small, but there was no mistaking it. The sagging couch, the cheap coffee table, the faint outline of the TV against the opposite wall, a string of useless Christmas lights drooping, half the bulbs dead, the rest giving off a faint, sickly glow. The angle was from the corner near the ceiling, where there is nothing in my actual apartment. No smoke detector, no camera, just plaster. It looked down on the couch. On the couch sat a figure. Even at that size, even with the mimicry of grainy video, I knew the shape, the slope of the shoulders, the messy halo of hair, the way one foot tucked under the other leg. Me. The timestamp in the corner of the tiny picture, printed in crisp white digits, read 2411220242359. I checked my phone out of habit, even though I knew the date, December 24th. Time, 10:03 a.m., 14 hours and 56 minutes until the moment in the picture. I tapped the cardboard, as if touching it would prove it wasn't real. It stayed stubbornly real under my fingertip. The room in the photo felt wrong in a way I couldn't immediately parse. The shadows were deeper, the corners darker. Behind the couch, near the wall, there was a fuzzy gray smear I couldn't make out. I lifted the entire calendar, turned it over, shook it like a broken remote. Nothing rattled. Nothing fell out. On the back, the same neat decorative box. 24 days, 24 windows. At midnight on the 24th, the story ends. Merry Christmas. I thought about burning it. I really did. I imagined the cardboard curling, blackening, that little frozen version of me disappearing into ash. But a smaller, meaner voice in my mind whispered, what if that's exactly what it wants you to do? What if it doesn't matter? What if the image is just a printed preview of something you're already walking toward? I put it back on the table, gently, like I was setting down an unexploded bomb. Then I did what I always do when I'm scared. I opened my laptop. Mace. 10. The dashboard. I didn't find the calendar online. I found echoes. Forums full of people swapping stories about cursed objects, urban legends, glitchy tales, Reddit threads where someone would say, "This is too much like that one post from years ago that got deleted." Every time I saw the phrase Advent calendar, my heart jumped. Once, years back, someone had written about a calendar that felt wrong. They didn't have pictures. They said all their photos of it came out blurry. The account was deleted. The thread was locked. People in the comments joked about it being a marketing campaign. Someone said, "If it's showing you stuff ahead of time, warn people." Duh, as if it were that easy. You try walking up to a stranger, clutching their shopping and telling them, "Hi, I saw a tiny version of you on cardboard, and you really shouldn't take the stairs today because your neck is about to meet the angle of reality in a way it won't like." 1,000. You know what people are really good at in December? Ignoring anything that doesn't fit the picture they've built of how their holidays are supposed to go. I opened a blank document instead. If I couldn't stop anything, maybe I could at least leave this behind. Something for the next person who finds cardboard on their doorstep. Something to make them hesitate before opening the first window. Outside, the afternoon died early, the way it does in winter. The sky shifted from gray to darker gray. Somewhere down the block, kids were having an argument that involved a lot of shrieking. Time crawled. Every hour or so, my eyes went to the clock. Every time, the numbers moved closer to the ones printed in the corner of that tiny picture. Overday, 11. The bells. I didn't notice the bells at first. They were so faint. I thought they were just another phantom noise from my phone. A leftover notification tone looping in my head. A soft jingle. High, delicate. Like someone shaking a handful of metal stars far away. I paused my typing. Listened. The radiator hissed. A pipe somewhere in the walls made a hollow knocking sound. The bells came again. Higher this time. Clearer. They weren't coming from outside. Not from the street. Not from somebody's holiday music leaking through the walls. They were inside. Not in any specific place. Just in the air. I stood up slowly. The Advent calendar was still on the table. The windows I'd opened stared up at the ceiling. The 24th picture. My picture looked the same. Couch. Me. Dark corner. The bells grew louder. They weren't constant. They came in. Patterns. 3 soft chimes. Pause. 3 more. Ho, ho, ho. I wanted to laugh and my throat wouldn't let me. "You're hallucinating," I told myself. Stress. Sleep deprivation. Another sound joined the bells then. Footsteps. Not above, not below, not in the hall outside my door. In the apartment. Slow, heavy. But not exactly heavy either. Like the sound had weight, even if the thing making it didn't. The floorboards didn't creak. The dishes in the sink didn't rattle. But the air moved with each step, brushing against my skin. I didn't call out. I didn't say, "Who's there?" like an idiot in a movie. I did what I've been doing for the last 23 days. I watched. The footsteps came closer, even though nothing visible moved. The bells rang in time with them. 3 steps. Jingle. Pause. 3 steps. Jingle. They stopped behind me. The back of my neck prickled, like I'd stepped into a cold draft. Very, very slowly, I turned around. There was nothing in the middle of my living room. The couch was still there. The table. The unopened box with the fake Christmas tree in the corner. The string of half-dead lights blinked lazily. But the shadows in the top corner of the room near the ceiling, where there is nothing, they were thicker than they should have been. The dark up there looked like it had depth. Like if you reached up and pushed, your hand would go through plaster and into something else. The bells stopped. My phone buzzed. The notification nearly stopped my heart. I looked at the screen with shaking hands. 23:57. In the pants of 12. Midnight. I don't know why I sat down. You'd think I would have run, or screamed, or done anything but what the picture on the calendar said I would do. But that's the thing about inevitability. isn't it? You don't really feel it until you're already inside its shape. I sank onto the couch. From where I sat, if I tilted my head just a little to the left, I could see the advent calendar on the table. The 24th window's little image stared back at me. Tiny me, sitting on a tiny couch, in a tiny version of this same room. The timestamp in the corner of the tiny picture flicked from 2358 to 2359. I raised my eyes to the real clock at the bottom of my phone. Same numbers. The air got heavier. My ears rang with silence where the bells had been, like the quiet after a firework explodes. In the dark corner, near the ceiling, something shifted. Not like a person, not like any living thing I know, more like shadows, deciding they were tired of being flat and stretching themselves in 3 dimensions. Long lines of darkness unfurled, slow and smooth, spilling down the wall in shapes that weren't quite arms, weren't quite ropes. They slid into the room like smoke finding cracks. No face, no outline you could hang a name on, just absence, an emptiness in the shape of attention. It stopped halfway down the wall, hovering, angled, as if looking at me. My chest felt too tight. Every instinct screamed at me to curl up, look away, not let it finish the shape it was forming. Instead, I did the most stupid, human thing. I spoke. "What do you want?" The dark didn't answer with words. It answered with movement. One of the knot limbs extended, slow, toward the table, toward the advent calendar. It brushed the cardboard. Every opened window flipped shut at once. The calendar went smooth and whole, as if I'd never touched it, except for one spot. In the center, where window 24 had been, the surface went soft and black, like wet ink. The tiny room inside it melted, smearing. The shape that was me blurred and vanished. The darkness pressing into my ceiling pulsed, just once, like something taking a slow breath. Then it pulled back, not up, not away, in, like a film spool rewinding, collapsing itself into a single frame. The shadows thinned. The corners of my apartment reverted to ordinary gloom. The weight on my chest lightened enough that I could breathe again, lungs burning like I'd been underwater. My phone buzzed on my lap. 0. Christmas. On the table. The calendar looked like any other cheap decoration. Smooth. Innocent. I didn't move for a long time. When I finally forced myself to stand, my legs trembled. I approached the table one slow step at a time. The advent calendar sat there, quiet. The painted town square, the little gas lamps, the snow, 24 perfect little windows, numbers gleaming in gold. None of them open, none of them torn. The decorative text along the bottom had changed. The words were the same, countdown to Christmas. 1 window a day. But there was a tiny new line beneath them, written in handwriting I recognized from a note I'd once unfolded over a black USB drive. Pass it on. Musser. 13. Epilogue. You're probably wondering why I didn't smash it, burn it, shred it, throw it in the river. Maybe I should have. Maybe I will, after I finish this. But here's what scares me more than anything that's already happened. Tomorrow is December 25th. Advent ends at midnight. Christmas goes on. And right now, as I'm speaking, as my voice turns into data and travels through whatever wires and towers and servers are holding it, the calendar on my table is doing something I don't want to look directly at. I can see it in the corner of my eye. Tiny movements, perforations forming where there were none, little gold numbers appearing one layer below the surface. 25, 26, 27. A new row of windows, hidden under the old, counting something else. Maybe time doesn't run out when the story says it does. Maybe the story just changes shape. If this recording survives, if you're hearing this on a night when you're up too late, and the room is dark except for a screen, and there's a calendar on your counter you don't remember buying, listen to me. Do not open the first window. Do not push in the cardboard and tell yourself it's just a picture. Do not say, it's only a game, It's only a tradition. It's only paper. Because it isn't. It's a door. And some doors don't care if you walk through them. They care that you let them in.